everybody, this is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
And I'm John Black.
And on this week's episode, we're going to discuss the two new Jeff Bridges films, Tron Legacy and True Grit, which we recently saw and very much dig. But which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, before we get started, I want to say in celebration of this Jeff Bridges double feature, I actually watched Thunderbolt and Lightfoot last night.
Wow.
And
that's a blast
he
from the past.
He is just a cocky young man in that movie. I think he got an Oscar nomination.
There are a few things on his resume that are just highly questionable. He did that Arnold Schwarzenegger film.
Pumping
Iron, but some Arnold
with Sally Field, right?
Yeah, I recall seeing that. And wasn't he in something like Valley of the Giants or something of the he was in a B movie in the 60s.
He's in a lot of B, C, D movies.
Food of the Gods or something like that. And,
but he also did Starman.
Man.
Which is a classic.
Loved it. When did that come out? 81? 82?
Yeah.
Because I was just telling you I was writing an intro for the website obsessedwithfilm.com, and I couldn't come up with a way to intro it. So I was like, it's 28 years later, and I was looking up 1982, and wow, 1982 was a pinnacle year for science fiction. Like, I was amazed,
with the original Tron.
Blade Runner, E.T., Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, The Thing. But then there was some other fantasy stuff like Dark Crystal.
When did what was that piece of crap that Ron Howard did? Legend?
Oh, Cocoon.
No, Legend.
Piece of crap. You're talking about Ridley Scott. That was 85.
What was the
Legend.
one that, not Legend, what was the one that Ron Howard did? That was like Legend.
Legend? I can't think of anything other than Splash. Splash was sort of his first.
Fans, what's the email so they can send me the correct answer to that?
Postmoviepodcast@gmail.com.
All right, send me what I'm talking about.
School John on Ron Howard.
School me audio.
Man, I want to say at the beginning, and I keep forgetting this, but
Willow.
Right, Willow. That was 88.
All right,
88.
You can still write to me, but it was Willow. Anyway, you were saying.
I keep forgetting to do an iTunes plug at the beginning, because if somebody leaves us a review and they give us a positive review, then our profile gets higher on iTunes, so more people will listen. So I would hope that if anybody finds it that they're actually listening to the podcast, if they could write something and leave us a positive review on iTunes, that would be like...
The negative reviews don't increase our stature?
No, I don't think so. But it makes me wonder if we should sweeten it with doing a giveaway for best positive reviews. But then that's disingenuous.
Yeah, no.
Because if we're not a quality show,
we'll learn
it's
we'll learn it honestly, as honest as we can be. Anyway, this week
we can't do some sort of behind the
payola like in the the 50s. With the Alan Freeman of podcast.
The quiz showing of podcast.
All right, so
let's get to it.
Tron or True Grit?
Oh, let's do Tron.
All right.
Since it's kind of on my mind. And the fact that, I was thinking back, 1982, I was so into freaking video games, and this I guess, has nothing to do with the movie in the sense that I frequented video game parlors, as a...
Do they even have those anymore?
I was a freshman in 82, freshman, sophomore. No, they do. They do in malls, but it's...
Dream Machines, some arcade like Dream Machine that used to be at the Lincoln Mall, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I can think of one at the Hyannis Mall. But I don't know if there's separate freestanding structures like the ones that...
No, but there are kids who will go to see this movie who don't know what video arcades are. Because they grew up with...
Well, they'll know what it is because they've seen the arcade in Tron.
Well, but...
Or the arcade where
they've never gone to arcades. They're used to home video,
I think so. If I asked my nephews and niece if they there's no chance.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that around here. I used to love it, man. At the beginning of the movie, they do a pan or some sort of establishing shot on the inside of Flynn's, and you see the different arcade games, and I was like, oh, man.
I played that one.
Aladdin's Castle. Huh. I loved it, man.
I was
Missile Command.
I remember I sucked at Missile Command. I sucked at Asteroids. I sucked at Centipede.
Centipede? I still play
sucked at Donkey Kong. I sucked at Mario Brothers. I suck at video games.
Missile Command, Galaxina.
Yep, I remember that.
That was, Aladdin's Castle, I remember being just so thrilled by, man. It was the game. And then when Tron came out, the graphics on Tron I thought were so amazing.
Yeah.
Every time I went to the theater in, out in Illinois when we went to, they had the Tron games out there, and I just looked forward to playing them all the time. The Identity Disc game, and the Light Cycle. I think they were both on the same thing. You could choose to play discs or Light Cycle on the same machine. I believe that's how it worked.
And was this one of the first movies that had that direct tie-in with video games? Because video games are such an important part of this.
I would guess yes, but I do remember seeing, pinball stuff.
Right. But now just about every movie that's got any action in it ends up being some half-assed video game.
Right. Basically, what they were doing now for like PS3 and
the Wii and the Xbox,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
They were putting it into the upright games, which were pretty darn cool.
I saw
Dragon's Lair, man. That was early video version of a video game.
I remember today I was at Newbury Comics today, and they had a video game for Wanted for Angelina Jolie movie. I was like, what do you do? What do you do in this movie? You shoot around, you learn how to curve your bullet. I'd be dazed doing that. So, were you a big fan of the original 1982, Steve the Freshman?
No. I thought it was. I saw it in the theater. I bought the video. I watched it at home. The movie just lost me 3/4 of the way through. I mean, I think I liked David Warner's performance as the bad guy.
Yeah.
I really liked him in Time Bandits. I thought he was really cool, but there was a certain coldness to it. It just didn't. It's not a great movie. It's like how I really wanted to like The Black Hole, and I was really looking forward to it, and then it ended up being really blah. And then the only cool scene in The Black Hole is where they go into the black hole.
Right.
A couple minutes before then. But in Tron, as with Tron Legacy, for me, the really cool scenes were the light cycle scene, and the disc battle scene.
But the story is
kind of lame.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Tron Legacy.
All right. Yeah. Well, both stories were lame.
It is a beautiful movie, but it is a mire of a story. It's a fucking swamp.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. About a half hour in, I think a lot of people in the audience were asking themselves, what is the purpose here? And I think the purpose was diffused because they did not have a really strong antagonist defined. It comes to be Clue, which is Jeff Bridges' alter ego in a younger CGI form, but he wasn't introduced earlier enough.
Right.
And then somebody made a good point that I thought I think Dave Chen made the point that he likes this movie as it has this in sort of the same regard as Avatar, but what Avatar delivered is what Tron did not, and that James Cameron knows his audience, and he knows that they want a payoff, and he knows that they want a 40-minute battle at the end of this movie that goes insane. There's nothing like that in Tron.
No.
There's no insane battle. You get the promise of something.
Right. There's a lot of flashiness going on.
When he's lining up troops, and you begin to see the fortitude of this digital universe.
Yeah.
But it never pays off. It's a big movie that has a very small, microcosm drama thing going on here. It's not as grand as one might think.
And I'm glad you said digital universe, because that's where they have all this takes place in this digital universe, and it's amazing because Flynn, the Jeff Bridges character, lives in this amazing house that's in some respects it's like high-tech, modern, digital house. But then he's also got books and French antique furniture and food Where does he get all this stuff in his digital world?
It's not explained in the movie, but in the interview that I just transcribed with Jeff Bridges, he says that Flynn conjured that digitally in order to make his son feel more at home. In other words, the food doesn't actually exist as food. You're not actually needing that kind of sustenance,
right?
But it's a visual comfort, and that's why they put it in the movie.
Someone should say that.
It's
they should
not
just give a line, because they're always drinking some blue liquid. There's bar scenes with the Daft Punk as the house band.
Yeah, and that was terrific. That was really cool. In fact, that's Michael Sheen.
Yes.
His character there, very underused. I thought the movie was going to be lifting off from that point. I thought that this was like, the Mos Eisley scene for this movie. This is where it was going to lift off and go in a new dramatic direction. It was very cool, and then it fell flat.
Right.
That whole battle scene was just, insane. In fact, I think we should probably step back and say that Garrett Hedlund, who plays, is it Hedlund? Hedlund, yeah, who plays, he plays Sam Flynn's son. He does a really good job. I can in no way fault him for this movie being lacking, because he really does a terrific job.
He's charismatic, he's likable, he's a wise ass, but he also brings the drama when it counts. He looked good doing the fight stuff or the stunts, although most of it seems to be CGI stuff. But
it's really, to me, it's really all a story problem. Technically, everything was great, but these guys did not study their storytelling like Pixar studied their storytelling,
right.
Or their pacing. So inevitably, the movie ends up lacking. So he finds himself getting this page to go back to his dad's enclave, where he basically cracked the machine to be able to get into this place called the Grid that I guess he created. But he hadn't heard from his dad in 30 years. His dad had disappeared. He was part owner in the company, but he's sort of the outlaw, the bad guy.
They call him once a year for a corporate meeting, and then he
reminded me of the Tom Cruise character in Vanilla Sky.
In what way?
That he gets the trappings of all the success, but yet earned none of it.
Right. And he has a cool house. He has who's the director of this? Steven Lisberger?
No, Lisberger directed the original.
He was Joseph Kosinski?
Yeah.
One of the it's become a pet peeve with me. They give Flynn, the son Flynn, a dog. And they keep cutting the dog for reaction shots. I hate that in the movie. Yeah. I don't need to see
it creates a certain sense of warmth to the character.
To me, it's always
a visual key to say that this is the good guy, and that whoever the dog likes is going to be this side. That's where the audience sides.
But I can see that if they're going to carry it to some part in the story. Again, it's a story problem where they just give him a dog to be cute and show some cute dog shots. Yeah, okay, we know he's the good guy because he has a dog.
Well, so Bruce Boxleitner comes over to the guy's apartment after he gets the text from his father, from Flynn's, from
the page. It's not even a text.
Using
it's
a pager. Yeah, I'm sorry. Right.
For the younger people there who don't know what a page is, that was before texting and everything else. It was a way to get remote. It's like having an answer machine, but he just buzzed and gave you a number of someone who called. So anyway,
long story short, they have the conversation where the dog kind of reacts while he's talking. But so they go over to the arcade, and Sam hacks into his father's system, with the password, and it powers up just like in Tron, and he's shot into the digital world, onto the Grid. And what I do really like about this is, and some people in a few reviews I've read complained that they blew their wad early. They put the light cycle stuff at the beginning. They put the identity disc fight at the beginning. They put the games at the beginning, and I thought that was totally cool because I had an expectation and I wanted to see this.
Right.
And those sequences just blow you away. I mean, this is some of the coolest 3D animation, some of the coolest visual design. It's insane. I mean, I cannot say don't go see this movie because there's really some insane stuff here. It's really, really cool. It is a really cool movie. And did I say cool?
Several times. Who's the blonde that was
Olivia Wilde?
Blonde.
The blonde.
That's another tease where as he goes into the Grid and they decide he's going to be a gamer. And so they suit him up for games, and they have like 4 hot babes come out and suit him up, and one's this ravishing blonde.
Yeah.
Who was in all the trailers. I thought she was going to be a huge part of the movie, and she disappears for another hour, and then she shows up as...
I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Her name is Anae Shufra, Cheurfa.
I don't know.
She's
stunning, and then she disappears for an hour
gorgeous.
and comes back as Michael Sheen's sidekick for a little bit, but she's not a big part of the movie at all.
She could have made a great henchwoman.
Yeah.
She really could have.
She's just there for eye candy. And
alluring and dangerous, but it never really came off. There was the promise of awesomeness that never really happened.
Yeah.
So when he goes onto the grid, he is declothed and reclothed in sort of the gaming gear, and then they go through the challenge of the game, which is played in this huge sort of this phosphorescent stadium. It's just really cool. And then that's where you meet Clue. And Clue, I'll try to quickly explain this, is a digital copy of Jeff Bridges, of Flynn's younger self at about 30 or something.
Right.
Where he created this person to enact, clean up all the holes in his quest for a utopia.
Right, to seek perfection.
Right. And so...
and
he began to question this. Flynn began to question this. He wanted out. He wanted to get out of this. And somehow, I believe Clue was involved in shutting down the gate. Or there was a gate.
The portal only stays open for so long. And because Flynn, the original Flynn, programmed Clue to search for perfection, he starts wiping out all the imperfection things on the grid, and then he sees the Earth on the other side of the portal as a place that needs to be corrected too, and that's where the battle. The thing is,
that would have been great.
The digital. You are set up for Tron 2 here.
But I'm almost not looking forward to it because I didn't think this movie comes through on its promise.
No, and the thing is, when they use the digital effect to give Clue a young Jeff Bridges face,
really cool. It's
really cool at first when I saw it, but then I became annoyed by it because it's not a good enough copy. I realize it's in the digital world.
There's a bit of the uncanny valley there.
Yeah, what?
It's called the uncanny valley
What's
in
that?
animation. Well, if you think of the concept of believability as a single line, as moving from point A to point B.
Right.
Where point A is a digital creation, and point B is the absolute, without question, your mind does not in any way think that what you're looking back at is inhuman.
Mm-hmm.
So the closer the technology and animators get to making a human representation,
right,
the closer it gets to be, there's a steep fall off.
Final Fantasy
can't quite
fall
get
off?
there. Yes, and that's the uncanny valley.
That's what always stops Bob Zemeckis from making a workable feature.
Well, that's where one would say these are some examples of that type of animation, but I wouldn't criticize him for it because he really pushed that technology forward. The technology that makes Avatar possible. The technology that makes even Flynn's creation here possible.
Yeah.
That's what he did, I thought Beowulf was terrific. But yeah, this is as perfect as it gets.
Well, I almost... it's just after a while I start looking for fault in it rather than taking it as
that's
a
what the mind does. That's what the mind does.
So my mind's okay.
Your mind is okay. Basically, in special
I'm glad
effects,
that's on tape. That's never been said out loud before.
Well, the special effects technicians know this. If you keep something on screen for more than 8 seconds, your mind is going to fault find. Your mind is actually going, even when you're in a room like this, your mind at some point is going to start looking for imperfections. In movies, they've determined, or at least ILM, when I talked with Dennis Murin, he said they've got 8 seconds. So when you see a matte painting, when you see a certain special effect that's motionless, if it goes longer than 8 seconds, it becomes unbelievable. Somehow something's going to click.
Okay.
But there's extended scenes in this movie with Flynn on screen.
Yeah.
And, you're watching his mouth, or at least I was. You're watching his reactions. And, because we know it's digital, we know that it's impossible for this actor to be there because he doesn't exist. I'm never really totally convinced, but it is amusing.
Right, but it also talks in an old man Jeff Bridges voice.
Yeah.
There's some moments where he gets mad and his voice drops to an old man sound. It's that's odd.
Yeah, there was that digital issue.
Yeah, but it
making
doesn't.
somebody's voice younger.
Again, what you said before, if the story was stronger, I wouldn't have time to think about these things.
No, it becomes.
But because I was bored by the story, I stopped picking apart.
It becomes about nothing, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that there would be like a greater purpose here.
No.
And a greater battle of some sort. And there's a very cool sort of light plane. I forget what they call those planes, but that was a damn cool sequence.
Yeah.
There's also, I want to talk about Olivia Wilde, who plays.
Yes, we do. Let's turn the lights
Quora.
down.
just stunning. I think she's my favorite part of this movie. She's sort of a human digital hybrid. I forget what exactly she's called, but she's sort of the last of the race that Clue was wiping out.
Right.
There were some sort of human digital hybrids or something like that, and I could be totally wrong. But Flynn was able to save her, so she, in a sense, became his
buddy,
mentee, and he his mentor. And she also, I believe, she basically carried, I believe, information as to the.
She carried most of the film.
Well, yeah, because there is a scene that I think that is just the best in the movie, and it's not the light cycle scenes, which are cool, and the disc scene at the beginning, which is very cool. But there's a fight scene that takes place in this sort of penthouse bar, saloon. I don't know what I want to call it, but where Daft Punk is providing music. And what happens there with Michael Sheen and Garrett Hedlund is, he basically sort of Michael Sheen is revealed, who plays what's his name, Castor. Is revealed as the bad guy, and they've been led into they've been sort of duped. But there's this great fight scene that breaks out, and Quora goes nuts for a little while, and she has some really cool fight stuff. And in the process of this fight, I won't say exactly what happened, but she is able to, because of her DNA, because of her digital DNA, which can be used to perfect the human condition in the real world, she can use that to regenerate, which is really cool.
Right.
And you get to see that. So
the thing is, it's funny because she's obviously very lovely to look at, and they dress her in this crazy kinky outfit. But I thought she also had the only humor in the movie.
She was. This is sort of kind of a humorless film.
She's got that brightness. She's got just the way she looks, and she delivers the funnier lines in the movie. She's just a life there that, it's not in the other performances. Michael Sheen does chew the scenery and glorious. I love.
There should have been more Michael Sheen. He should have had a more well-rounded character. That aspect should have been carried all the way through the film. To see, what goes down there is like. It's a very cool moment in the movie, but the direction after that went just.
Well, as you said, it's a cool moment, but it doesn't connect up to it or away from it. It just kind of. I mean, it does, but it doesn't work well.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It's mired. But man, I want to recommend it.
Oh yeah.
My brother Mike saw it, and this is the first time he'd seen a 3D movie, and he was just really amazed by it.
It's really that's the only thing. The only problem I would recommend it, but. The only problem I have is that they're going to charge you extra. You're going to end up paying, what, $13 for a matinee or something? 16 at night? I think that's a ripoff.
I wonder if they're going to show it in 2D. We should also say that there are some sequences in this film, that are shown in 2D.
But,
maybe 20 minutes of the movie.
But they
look great.
But they have a thing in the beginning where it says, some of this movie was shot in 2D, some in 3D, but we meant to do it. It wasn't like Clash of the Titans where they did some, technical higgery-jiggery afterwards to make it 3D. When you're in the real world with Flynn, it's 2D. When he goes on the grid, that's when it becomes 3D. But they don't stop and make you put on the glasses. You just come through the whole thing.
They tried, in the original, I remember, they tried in some way to. They didn't film it in 3D, but the luminescence of it when they go into the grid made it look 3D, and it was because they filmed it in 70 millimeter. But it was 70 millimeter black and white, so whenever they went into the grid, they just tinted all the stuff and colored it up, and it made it look really cool, really pop on the screen. I'd love to see it on the big screen again, but I'm sure Disney won't do it.
No,
I don't think they have a lot of faith in that.
No, original. They have this new franchise, and it will be a franchise. That was one of the things when they have the board meeting in the beginning, and Cillian Murphy is on the board. You know, and you're like, what's a guy like Cillian Murphy doing?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
This 2-minute scene.
Notice.
He's the programmer who solves everything when Flynn hacks into the system and makes the dog. He just types something. No, it's all set. And I was like, Cillian Murphy, what is Cillian Murphy doing for 2 minutes in this movie? That's
I'm disappointed in the movie, but I'm not like really negative on it.
No.
Because I'd be happy to see another one.
And the thing is, it's it's going to get. I'm willing to bet it gets an Oscar for special effects because they are good. And so they can call it. It's going to make a ton at the box office. So there's no reason for them not to do a sequel.
Oh yeah, and sound editing too.
I just hope they do more, maybe soundtrack.
Yeah, I thought you were going to. Possibly. I thought you were going to challenge me on what is sound editing again.
No.
That's an old episode.
They can look through the archives to find that episode. But I think that because it's going to make a lot of money and it's going to get a lot of awards, that there'll be, and because of some cliffhangers or things that don't make enough sense, like Cillian Murphy, that we'll be seeing Tron 2 in probably 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. I'm not against it. I'm definitely not against it, although I'm not positive. I'm in a strange place about this movie. It's just one would wish that the story was more exciting. But it's like, see it, but don't get too excited about it.
Right. And do you think people should go rent the original and then go see it?
Well, you can't. I don't think. I mean, unless your video store has an old copy.
I have it on DVD.
Damn, you're one up on me, man.
That's right.
I'm inclined to ask if I can borrow it. Because I've actually had a couple people tell me that they just couldn't find it, or you can get some old copies on eBay. But Disney hasn't put it out of the vault. They haven't released it. And
it'll be I'm surprised there isn't the new 3D or Blu-ray version of Tron coming out timed with this movie, because they always do that. It's like, we're going to show. I think before Toy Story 3 came out, Toy Story 1 and 2 got the Blu-ray treatment.
Yes, but I think, and I'm just totally guessing on this, but you see, Tron is not a great movie.
Right.
It's not great. And Disney obviously has the wherewithal to do with their phones what they want, but I think that they saw that if they did a Blu-ray release of this in the coming weeks, they'd basically be showing people that this movie isn't so great.
Yeah.
Although somebody told me that you can get it all on YouTube.
Probably
can. The idea of it is the franchise.
Yeah.
The movie itself is, same.
All right, so our recommendation is basically go see it, but, maybe matinee.
Yeah, and don't get your hopes up for a really flambang ending.
No.
It's not up there. But, man, I couldn't recommend more the next film here.
The second of our Jeff Bridges double feature.
Yeah, this one's where it's at, and it is not the over-the-top slam bang kind of thing, but that's not what it's supposed to be. It's
not what
true grit.
And the Coen brothers can do over the top, and this is definitely a Coen brothers movie, but it's also a classic Western.
Well, you probably have seen it more recently than I had. I saw it on TV as a kid, and I haven't seen it since.
I rented it. I Netflixed it about a month ago, and it's good. But it's John Wayne, and he's the star, and it's Glenn Campbell.
Glenn Campbell.
Kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
But it also had that kind of Hollywood sheen that this one doesn't have. It's a lot slicker. John Wayne tries to be a lot more lovable. He's a lovable drunk. Jeff Bridges doesn't care about being lovable. There's no there's people who get shot in the original, but when people get shot in a Coen Brothers movie, you can feel the impact it feels like, when they go to the cabin and they smoke those two guys out, and then they end up, you don't see the guy. One guy doesn't get his hand chopped off, and the fingers sitting on the table, the way the Coen Brothers leave the fingers on the table. They're both good. I like the original, but I like this one a lot better.
I wonder if it plays to the violence from the novel that it's based on.
I don't know. Ed Simkus did the junket, and he's going to give me the novel. He took 2 copies. So he's going to let me read. I've heard great things about the book. So I'm looking, and I've been told that the Coen brothers follow it more closely, particularly the ending. So
Charles Portis,
but this is
the author.
This is a side note about the author. In Men's Health, there's an interview with Jeff Bridges, and there's a sidebar written by Tom Wolfe, yeah, about Charles Portis, the author, who was a writer or an editor at the New Yorker, and one day up and quit, told everyone he was going to the cabin in the woods to write a novel, and everyone, talked about it and did it and dreamed about it. This guy went off and wrote novels. He wrote True Grit, he wrote a bunch of other, bestsellers, just walked away from his job, decided he was going to write books, and just went off and did it. Hats off to him, because
eliminated a lot of distractions, I guess.
Yeah. The only time I think about going out in the cabin in the woods, I always end up with that Evil Dead scenario in my head,
Yeah.
So I don't do it. Anyway, True Grit. It's the story of True Grit.
This is the story of a fantastically talented idiot. Untalented.
It's the story of a young girl. Her father's been murdered by his ranch hand in a drunken frenzy after a card game, and she wants revenge, and she goes off and hires a U.S. Marshal, the meanest one she can find, which I think is a classic. She's like, who are the U.S. Marshals? And, this one's the best tracker, this one's the most honest, and this one's the nastiest, and she ends up hiring the nastiest, this guy named Rooster Cogburn. And they hook up with a Texas Marshal who's also on the trail of the same guy,
Tom Cheney.
And they track him down. And she said, if you haven't seen the original, there's a lot of story here I don't want to give away.
Well, the backbone of the movie is Haley Steinfeld, who is frame after frame in this film terrific. She's convincing utterly in her staunchness to avenge her father's death, and she's almost mathematically practical.
She
all this coming from a 13, 14-year-old girl, where she's able to best elder guys in just general debate about finances and what they can and cannot do, and what she's going to be doing, and so her quality is exemplified in a good number of scenes. And
she deserves a lot of credit, because she doesn't come across as a know-it-all or a bratty kid. There's a scene where
I think she does come across as a know-it-all, but not as a brat.
Yeah, there's also, what I'm trying to say is there's a humanity to it. There's a scene where she wakes up in bed, and the Texas Ranger, LaBeef, played by Matt Damon, is sitting there. And, when she wakes up, and they start having this conversation, and she's getting the best of him, and he gets upset and says, and I was going to kiss you, but you're too young and too ugly. And it's just this little play on her face where she's really hurt by what he said, but she has to find that backbone she's been using the whole time, and she fires back at him both barrels.
Yeah.
So it's a really good performance, like I said.
And really well written.
Yeah.
I mean, the Coen brothers have a way with words. With what was that? Oh, where art thou? I forget.
Oh, brother,
where art thou? Just a wonderfully well-worded screenplay, and the use of language in this film is entertaining. The way they explain things, and the Old West lingo, and things are very practical. It's a very entertaining dialogue.
Well, there was the reviewer in the New Yorker made a comment that they don't use contractions at all in this script. No one said it wasn't. They said it was not.
I thought that during the movie, that they were sitting there having three-way conversations, and there were no contractions.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you know what I just thought? Because my ADD is going friggin' crazy. The real reason that Tron was such a friggin' downer. And my friend Chris and I talked about it after the movie. I'm getting back to this because it just jumped in my mind. But Tron appears in the film, and you get to see him as Bruce Boxleitner, but you never get to know anything more about Tron.
Right.
Except that in one point, he decides who's going to be good, who's bad, where his allegiance goes. There is no exploration of Tron. The title of the movie, the title character, is a nowhere man. Just emptiness. Absolute emptiness. You get to see him do some really cool action stuff. You get to see him doing the light plane sequence.
Right.
But you still don't know. Tron is a tool of the most minor entity, and that is a downer.
And while we're on the subject of language, there are moments in Tron Legacy where Jeff Bridges channels Lebowski. And it's really, I don't know if he was the dude in Tron.
But it may seem anachronistic now, but that's still the way he was going, you know. If this being the way his character actually talked in the 1980 film was just carried over, it seems anachronistic now, but
it just seemed out of place. It just seemed like it was there for to get the audience to laugh, rather,
or to use the term "totally rad."
Yeah, little things like that just didn't. You know, he's like, you know, a Zen Buddhist gamer, and
that's actually what Jeff, in agreeing to do the movie, he had really wanted to bring a Buddhist aspect to Flynn's philosophy, and they actually had a Buddhist consultant on the film.
Great, put something in the script that tells me that. Otherwise, he comes across as a California nut job, you know. But no, there's nothing in the movie that tells you that that's what's going on.
Thankfully.
There's no Zen as Rooster Cogburn.
Right. Well, what I was going to say was, thankfully, there's no Buddhism, only because it's completely unnecessary in True Grit. He didn't bring it with him.
Right. He left it.
He brought his True Grit.
He let his guns do the talking.
So the backbone of this film is Haley Steinfeld. And the way she relates to the characters, Matt Damon, again, in a supporting role here, terrific.
Yeah.
As LaBeef, yes, the Texas Ranger, and his allegiance to the Rangers is admirable. Also enjoyable was Barry Pepper as the bad guy, and then even I thought he was actually a better bad guy than Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin has a very minor role here, but it's the key role of Cheney, the guy they're after. So maybe he's on screen for 5-10 minutes, but
he talks in an annoying way.
Yeah.
Brolin does. I was just like, what's he trying to do? It didn't give enough time to establish why Cheney talks like that. We've been told he's dumb, but he just kind of talks funny. Barry Pepper, if you've seen the original, he plays Lucky Ned Pepper, the leader of the bad guys that Cheney hooks up with. And in the original movie, it's Robert Duvall.
Right.
And when you see Barry Pepper do it, it's like he's channeling Duvall. It just feels...
Was Dennis Hopper in the original?
He was one of the guys.
Was he the guy, the laughing guy, or one of the?
No,
oh, he's one of the guys.
He was one of the guys in the shack who, there's two guys in the shack that they think they're going to ambush Cheney, and it goes bad on Rooster and the beef, and but there's two guys hiding out, and they throw a coat over the chimney, smoke them out. Rooster arrests them. They end up killing each other. Dennis Hopper was one of those guys. He was the guy who died. The one who the other guy kills him because he was going to turn him in or whatever.
Great scene in the middle of this film where they actually do a stakeout.
Yeah.
Wherein, instead of confronting Cheney point blank, they were going to just sort of corner him and then sniper him, from the rocks up above. And in Matt Damon's portrayal of LeBeau, LaBeef, he quite often brags about his abilities with the gun, which are interesting.
Oh yeah. Interesting. So the whole thing is he's a braggart Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
He has to tell stories about he's been so thirsty he had to drink water out of a hoof print. And then Rooster Cogburn's like, if I've met one Texan tell me that, I've met 1,000 tell me the same thing. And there's a great banter between the two of them.
Definitely.
There
is something about banter between two, 3 people on a mission that all don't want to be with each other. It does make for a good story.
Yeah, at least when it's well written like this is.
Terrifically well written.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if it didn't get a nod for best adapted screenplay. But I also want to say about the Coen brothers, this is such an example of the diversity of their career. Beginning with Blood Simple and then Raising Arizona and the different things that they've done. Miller's Crossing, Fargo, and then Lebowski. The different genres. So I guess this is their first sort of Western, and they succeed.
Yeah.
They succeed, and I'm kind of mad at them, envious, it pisses me off that they can do this.
Yeah.
But I guess they keep building themselves opportunities to be able to make films because they're so damn good at it.
Yeah. I think they, it's a Coen Brothers film, so you go see it.
Yeah, and they keep their team together. Mm-hmm. Carter Burwell does the score.
Same cinematographer?
Same cinematographer. God, what's his name? Roger Deakins, who I got to meet and talk with on Hudsucker Proxy. So that was really cool. I was impressed with this stuff even before they were filming it, and I did some camera work on Hudsucker Proxy, and he to me was like a quintessential British photographer, like the guy who really does sit around the set with his with his scarf and his hat, looking like he's out of the 1920s or something. It wasn't always the case, but I remember him looking like that a couple times. And just sitting there and ordering people, telling people what to do. Not that he's a bad, he's not like some ogre or something like that. He's not. He's perfectly quiet and nice. But I got to see how I think the Coen brothers. Well, I guess what they do is they make something that just really isn't very expensive look very.
They're
expensive.
A lot like Woody Allen, I think,
that.
where they can make it for a small budget. They make the film they want to make. They get the people they want. People want to be in their movies, and it can make it doesn't have to be a blockbuster. It makes enough money to make the next one.
And I think that if a filmmaker really wants to learn something about how to have a successful career, the Coen brothers are certainly role models in that sense because they keep their team of people. They've developed relationships instead of just going after tools that they can put together to make
the hot new name or the
they really do have a crew that they go with. I mean, they don't take other projects. The team moves forward together. Sort of in the way Spielberg kind of did early on, and I guess Lucas to some extent. They have their core team. Great filmmakers, and Eastwood. They really have a core team of people.
Yeah,
it's not about the one guy, or in this case, two guys. It's about it's the system that works well, that makes a great movie.
And they do it with they build an ensemble of actors. It's not the same actor in every movie, but they have they'll get Clooney coming back, they'll get Totoro coming back.
Yeah.
They add something new each time, maybe for each new project. There's a new face. Frances McDormand, who's married to one of them, she comes back a lot. And they just have this core of people that even when the films don't work, there's that one with Clooney as a divorce attorney with
Burn After Reading.
No, the one with Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh, right.
Irreconcilable Differences. No.
Right, Irreconcilable Differences. No, that was the Drew Barrymore thing.
Yeah.
Shoot, I've got a T-shirt from it, and I did the press thing for that.
But that one didn't work for me.
It's amazing how you can have the T-shirt and see the movie and do the press junket.
He's not wearing it now. He's not looking down and can't read it. So I don't want people to think that.
But George Clooney, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Not all the Coen brothers work as well for me, but some people love Miller's Cross and some don't. I don't like Raising Arizona. I just don't think it's funny, But I love Miller's Crossing. Fargo. Everything lined up on Fargo. No one doesn't seem to like that, but
I didn't really like Blood Simple. I saw it in the theater when it came out, and it bored me.
What? Blood Simple bored you?
It did.
And have you seen it since?
No, I have not. But I remember how bored I was.
It's real slow. It's real Texas slow. But here's a side note for that. Did you see A Woman, a Gun, in a Noodle Shop?
No, I have not.
It was
in my consciousness as like, wow, the Chinese
version of Blood Simple
remade it,
and it was when they showed it to the press, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Everyone else was so pissed off that how could they do this to the Coen brothers? And I was like, it's just a different version. I won't get into the Psycho debate, but I don't hate Gus Van Sant for remaking Psycho. I can argue pros and cons, but I don't vilify him for doing it. And I like the whole Chineseification of the Coen brothers. I had a good time with it. But so this one, the action is great. The photography is amazing in this movie. You almost don't realize how beautiful True Grit is. But the vistas, the Old West feel You know, when they're in that town.
Genuinely filmed it down in Texas.
Yeah, and you know it's funny because I'm a fan of westerns, and sometimes you see the old west towns, and it's like you can tell it's a backlot. You know, it just doesn't look there's nothing. There's this wide open vista, and there's a dirt road where they built the town. Great.
They kept it. They have some of those town scenes are neat. You know, it's neat to go back like that. But they kept it pretty small scale for what it had to be. You know, all about the drama between the three of them, and it will get nominated for Best Picture. I mean, now that the field is open to 10, I don't think it's going to win.
Did it get a Golden Globe?
I don't recall. I think Jeff Bridges got a nod. I know Haley Steinfeld did.
Okay.
But I don't recall.
Yeah.
But it's good to see Winter's Bone get the recognition.
Yeah.
Really dig that.
It's a happy film, huh?
But to me, that's definitely a top 10 list.
Yeah.
Definitely top 10s, which we have to do pretty soon. Top 10s. It's
Send your suggestions.
Standard.
Send your suggestions. We're going to do a best of the year list on an upcoming episode, but we could use your help, partially because I'm old and can't remember everything I've seen, but no, it's true.
You saw The Fighter.
Yes.
This past week. You saw The Tourist.
You know, that's just it. I remember what I saw in the last couple months, but what did I see in January, February?
You did see a Shrek movie this year.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't believe it. You saw Date Night.
Yeah,
you did see that.
I saw a lot of crap, though. I remember I saw a lot of crap this year. So, but anyway, what's the email is
postmoviepodcast@gmail.com, and visit us online at post-movie.net. I've redesigned the site a little so it looks a little nicer. But before we get going, I want to talk about the movie Make Out with Violence, which the filmmakers sent me a copy of this a few months back. And the movie played in Boston at the new Paramount Theater, which periodically has film screenings, back in October. And I forgot to discuss the movie, and I feel horrible about it, you know. But this is a real quality film made by the DeGaulle brothers. And for what it is, it was really terrific. You know, I thought it was a little languid at parts. I became a little bored with it at parts. But you know what? That does not, in my mind, does in any way dispel how good the film is. As a very quality film. The performances, the fact that this is about a dead high school girl who comes back as a zombie, but she is... she comes back as a zombie, and she is taken in by the guy who was originally infatuated by her, you know, the guy who really originally loved her. Mm-hmm. And I just thought the premise was really, you know, that they're hiding a zombie in the house, and there's some real squirmy scenes, particularly one where they actually try and feed her, which is really... So Make Out with Violence is, I believe, playing on Netflix. So you can get it on demand. You can watch it online. I do recommend it. And, man, if I were perfect, if I were the man who didn't forget things, I would have talked about this 2 months ago. I would have talked about it in November. You know, I just feel like terrible about it. You know, when a filmmaker sends me their movie and I didn't talk about it and I forgot to talk about it, that's kind of like, yikes. But I hope they forgive me. But do check it out. It's Make Out with Violence, and it's gotten some great reviews from some other critics. So it's on demand. I believe Netflix on demand. So check it out. So I think we're done.
We are.
Cool.
We are.
Cool. So until next week. If you perchance happen to check out post-movie.net, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at postmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And until next week, I'm Steve Head.
And I'm John Black.
So long, everyone.